here's the thing. I get asked all the time by viewers what kind of strings I use. That used to be a pretty regular topic, back when I was still doing live streams on this channel, which I've kind of gotten away from here over the last 8 or 9 months now. That's a different topic for another day. Maybe we'll get back to it. Maybe we won't. I don't know yet. Haven't quite come to a decision. Regardless, though, whether it's whether it's in whether it's in the live streams, whether it's in the comment section, whether people are sending me emails, reaching out to me on Facebook or whatever it is, a lot of people ask me what kind of strings I use. So I thought I would just put together a video and explain all the different strings that I use and the situations that I use them in. Now, I am an Ernie ball guy. I've been playing Ernie ball Slinkies since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. I love Ernie ball Slinkies. They've always treated me well, done exactly what I needed to do, what I needed them to do. They sound good. They stay in tune. They don't break as easily for me anyway as some of the other brands. And they're relatively cheap. A set of Ernie ball guitar strings is what, $5-6 now. Even with inflation right now. Come on, who doesn't have $5 or $6 for a set of strings? The Hybrid Slinky set that I have in my hand here, this was the string gauge that I used for just about everything for the longest time. And this is a 9-46 set, so it's got the treble side string gauges of a 9-gauge set and the bass side string gauges of a 10-gauge string set, which is why it's called Hybrid Slinkies. Because it's literally half of the Super Slinkies and half of the regular Slinkies, which are those are probably the two most popular Ernie ball string gauges right there. So I used hybrids on just about everything. From Les Pauls, on my Les Paul length scale length guitars, my Strat, my Fender scale length guitars. Which, if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about there, by the way, your standard Gibson guitar scale length is 24 3/4 of an inch from the nut at the 0 fret, or at the nut behind the first fret, down to the bridge. That distance is 24 3/4 of an inch long. Versus Fender's scale length, which is 25 1/2 inch long, because Fender's scale length is a little bit longer. The same, the longer scale length allows for more tension on the strings. I used these on just about everything because years ago, most of my guitars were going to be in roughly the same tuning. Most of them were within a half step or so of each other anyway. And these were perfect because I could throw them on Strats and they played comfortable. I could throw them on Gibsons. They played comfortable, and it felt relatively the same. But eventually I started venturing out into some other string gauges for some other situations. For example, this is the set of regular Slinkies. This is probably Ernie Ball's best-selling guitar string right here. This is their 10-46 set. Exact same strings as these. Just the gauges are a little bit different. Again, 10-46. I primarily put this string gauge on guitars that I have tuned about a whole step down. Like my my Schecter CR6 that you guys see in a lot of videos. That guitar is primarily tuned a whole step down, and I typically use 10-46 gauge strings on that guitar. So that's another thing I try to keep in mind as well, is with the lower tuning that a particular guitar is going to be, the heavier gauge set of strings is what I'm likely going to use on it. That said, I tend to prefer lighter gauge strings than a lot of people. Which again, I actually use here lately. I've actually been stringing my Les Pauls up with 9s. They come strung from the factory. Most people will play 10s on Gibson scale length guitars. I've been going 9s lately, 9-42. This is a set of Ernie Ball Cobalts that I sometimes like to use. These are a different alloy than the regular Slinkies, and if you've been playing nothing but nickel or nickel plated, which are what these are, for most of your life, and then all of a sudden you switch to a Cobalt, it will take a little bit of getting used to, because I mean there is a noticeable tone difference, but I think it's a good it's a good tone difference, but it does take some getting used to. Even Steve Vai said at first he didn't like the Cobalts, but eventually they grew on him, and he's been using them pretty. To my knowledge, he's still using them. Been using them pretty extensively since they came out about 10 years or so ago now. So right now, typically 9 to 42 on on a standard Gibson scale length guitar, and Cobalts for when I want to I want a little bit of a new tonal adjustment. This is a much cheaper way to change the tone of your guitar than a new set of pickups, by the way. Cobalts, by the way, these run about what, $9 or $10 a set or something like that. They're again not very expensive. Skinny top, heavy bottoms. These are 10 to 52. These are similar to the hybrids, except these are the combination of the a 10 gauge string and a 10 gauge string set and a like an 11 gauge string set, 11 to 52. So I generally, this is really about the heaviest set of gauge strings that I'm going to go. I don't venture to go too much heavier than this. These are, guitars that I've got tuned down to like, C, C, like, which would be, what's it, 2 whole steps down, and, drops, drop B, Slipknot type of tunings. Those are the ones that I'm going to put these strings on. So most people, seem to go a lot heavier than that, 11s, 12s, even 13s for some people. I prefer lighter gauge strings. I've never understood the method of thinking behind putting heavier gauge strings on a guitar when it's, all it does is, really for the most part, yeah, there's a tonal difference, but, number one, lighter gauge strings, as Rick Beato proved here about a year ago, lighter gauge strings have a tighter bottom end, number one, and number two, they're just, they're easier to play. No need to continue working so hard. So that's primarily what I use. Another thing that I've been experimenting with here over the last year or so are elixirs. I've been putting these on some different stuff, on some different guitars, particularly guitars that I might not play quite as often. These are a coated string, so they're going to say, as the advertising on the package says, or at least it used to, these things last about 3 times longer than regular guitar strings, and that is absolutely true. So, if I decided for guitars I have laying around that I don't play quite as often, these can cost $12, $15, $20 or so, depending on where you go. But they absolutely last at least 3 times longer than regular guitar strings. So non-coated strings. So if you take if a set of Ernie ball strings is $6, what's that? $18. And if this thing lasts at least 3 times as long, it'll work out to be at least about the same. My experience is it's been actually more cost efficient in the long run. And also, I like the polywebs, which is kind of unusual for people who like elixirs. Most people seem to go for the nano webs or more, more recently the OptiWebs when it comes to electric guitar strings from Elixir. I like the polywebs. The polywebs are the really, really thick coating, but I like them because they're also the smoothest feeling to me. So, again, personal preference. Sometimes, if I happen to be in a spot where, where Ernie ball strings are either they're out of stock or not available, whatever the case may be, usually Dunlops a lot of times will be my second choice. Again, very affordable. And easy to come by. A lot of places carry them. Dunlop, or and they're good quality guitar strings. These are also packaged in a moisture-free VCI, VCI plastic package on the inside. And one thing a lot of people are not aware of with these is these are actually designed by the same guy that designed DR strings, which are very, very popular, but much, much cheaper. Very similar to DRs though. Good strings. I've had a lot of luck with these. The tag ends on these at the at the headstock though can be they're pretty long, so be prepared to cut off a lot of string. There's some other strings that I haven't had a chance to try yet. One of them being the again from Dunlop. These are strings out of their Heavy Core series. This is a 10 to 50. I'm sorry, this is a 10 to 48 set. But these are designed for players who tune down and play really, really hard. So, my understanding is the strings by themselves already have a little bit higher tension. So I'm kind of curious to see how they would feel for me, or if I would like the lower, smaller string gauge of these compared to something else that I might have to have in order to maintain the proper tension. So, I like light strings, I like light tension, but, there comes a point when too much tension eventually becomes, too springy, as my good friend Tony would say. The other ones that I am curious to try out, Ernie Ball has recently come out with several new string gauges over the last couple of years. And one that they finally put out is what they're calling the Zippy Slinkies. And these are 7-gauge strings. Now, these are about the lightest gauge set of strings that you can buy. This is a 7 to 36 set, and Billy Gibbons actually is known for playing 7s throughout various different points of his career. Billy Gibbons played a lot of different string gauges, of everything from 7s, 8s, 9s, 10s, probably 11s, 12s at some point as well. But he is a major artist that is very, very well known for using extremely light gauge strings on his guitars. So I'm curious to see how these sound. One set that I don't have, that I forgot to grab in this video, was actually a set of extra Slinkies, which is Ernie Ball's 8-gauge string set. So these, that's their 8 to 38 is the string gauge on those. I've actually been using those on my guitars that I have tuned to standard E. I used those when I was a kid, and eventually I started using heavier strings, and I've recently gone back to them, and I actually really like the sound of it. I like the sound and the feel. I think they feel perfect for me. I'm a really light-handed guitar player, so I don't have a problem with breaking strings from just playing too hard. The last one that is on my list to try out, and I'm going to do a separate video on these because I think these seem to be catching a lot of attention. The new James Hetfield Ernie Ball Papa Het strings. This is a 3-pack that you can buy at Guitar Center. 11 to 50 is the string gauge on these. So these are somewhere between their Power Slinkies and their what are the 11? I think it's what they call the Beefy Slinkies. So kind of somewhere in between there. This particular set comes with 3 sets in the box, and these are a little pricey because they got to pay James along the way. So I want to say that these are 30 something bucks, a little over 30 bucks for this whole thing, for the strings and the tin. But that's anything that's a signature model is always going to be a little bit more expensive, again because they got to pay the artist. But I've heard good things about these strings, and I really am looking forward to trying them out. So, Papa Het's Hardwired Master Cores is what these are called. So, sounds like they might have done something a little bit different with the core as well. So, I hope that answers your questions. Sorry, I know there was definitely some mansplaining in this video, and I apologize, but there are a lot of beginner and entry-level guitar players that watch this channel that may not be familiar with some of the terminology and why we do some of the things that we do. So I want to make sure and make those videos as cut and dry and easy to understand for those people as well. So those are the strings that I use. This video, by the way, was not sponsored by anybody. No string companies. Ernie Ball, Elixir, Dunlop, none of those companies sponsored this video. These are all strings that I grabbed out of my own personal stash that I paid for with my money. No outside opinions have influenced anything in this video. I'll put links down in the description for those that need them. Please consider subscribing to this channel if you have not already. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.